Thank you, and good evening everyone in the gallery. It's nice to see a full house, so thanks for joining us. And those joining us online this evening, I'm Councillor Bernadette Thomas and I welcome everyone to the October 2025 City Development Delegated Committee, and I declare the meeting open at 6:31 p.m. Maribyrnong City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Wurrung and Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and we pay our respects to ancestors, elders, past and present, and those emerging leaders as well, and offer that respect to any First Nations people joining us tonight. So I just want to remind everyone to switch their phones off or onto silent. I'll just move to my this. And I advise the gallery that the meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council's website. All care is taken to maintain your privacy, however your presence may be recorded. In accordance with Council's governance rules, meetings may not be photographed, filmed or recorded without the consent of the Chief Executive Officer. And we haven't had any. Thanks. And I advise that there are no apologies for tonight's meeting. And in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, do any councillors have a conflict of interest in relation to any of the agenda items? Thanks, councillors. So we'll move to public question time and requests to address the committee. So there are two opportunities for members of the public to participate in tonight's meeting. The first is public question time and the second is the request to address the committee. Addresses to the committee will be heard immediately prior to consideration of each item, and I think we've got people here for one of the items tonight. So we'll move to public question time, which is managed in accordance with Council's governance rules. Members of the public can submit a maximum of 3 questions prior to the commencement of the meeting, and as Chair, I will ask someone to respond to the questions, and public question time is limited to 15 minutes unless councillors consent to an extension. So let's go to the first set of questions. First set of questions are Fadula Youssef asked the following questions, and the first 2 questions have been grouped together with a single response provided. So I'll read both questions and then I'll ask the Director to respond. So the first one is, based on my experience during the recent VCAP conference brought by the Council, why were Council officers unaware of or failed to consider the statutory clearance and asset protection requirements of utilities such as Greater Western Water and Gemina when approving landscape conditions for my property? And the second question, it was confirmed that Greater Western Water was not referred under Section 55 or notified under Section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. How does Council ensure procedural diligence and interagency coordination when imposing such conditions on residents? And I'll ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. The Planning and Environment Act 1987 and the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme contain referral requirements for planning permit applications in certain circumstances. Although Greater Western Water and Gemina are often referred planning permit applications for subdivision, there is typically no referral requirements for development applications where landscaping is assessed and considered. And whilst council officers understand that there are other authorities may have their own requirements for developments, and it's desirable to be as integrated as possible, the planning application process has a defined scope which council officers must work within.
Thanks. And the third question is, why does Council continue to permit or overlook the planting of trees and shrubs on nature strips in West Footscray that clearly do not comply with Gemina's Electric Line Clearance Management Plan 2021 to 2026 or the Electricity Safety Electric Line Clearance Regulations 2025? Many of these plantings are directly beneath low voltage lines and exceed safe height limits. Based on my observation, how does Council reconcile this inconsistent enforcement when residents are required to meet stricter vegetation and clearance standards on their private property? Again, I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure Services to respond.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Each year, Council continues to plant and establish new street and park trees to support the target of increasing the city's canopy cover to 20% by 2040. And further information can be found in Council's urban forest strategy regarding that. The presence of overhead electrical wires across the city does present challenges when selecting suitable trees for nature strips, Each site is assessed to determine constraints such as overhead wires, service connections to properties and available space for tree roots. And Council applies the principle of selecting the right tree for the right location, aiming for species suitability for each site.
Thank you. The second submission is from Glenn Yates, who asks, in 2012, Maribyrnong City Council released its Maribyrnong Integrated Transport Strategy. On page 82, it states, Policy 25, Council will establish idle-free zones throughout the municipality. Fast forward to the Maribyrnong Air Quality Improvement Plan, Action 23, it also states, implement the Maribyrnong Integrated Transport Strategy Vehicle Anti-Idling Program. May 2023, Maribyrnong City Council announces a health emergency. Why we are now at the point where local laws will set laws for the next 10 years. Why does the anti-idling policy keep being passed over? I'll ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Maribyrnong City Council has had a long-standing commitment to reducing vehicle emissions and the associated anti-idling initiatives. The inclusion of such initiatives in the 2012 Integrated Transport Strategy and its reaffirmation in the 2023 Air Quality Improvement Plan clearly demonstrate Council's recognition of the health and environmental impacts of vehicle idling. The concern about why implementation has lagged despite these commitments is valid, and while various factors may have contributed, such as competing priorities, resource constraints, or indeed the complexity of enforcement, it's clear that with the declaration of a health emergency, action on this matter is a key priority of the Council. As we look forward to achieve the effective implementation of actions outlined in the Air Quality Improvement Plan, it's critical that Council not only revisits but actively prioritises the anti-idling initiative. Doing so would align with our broader goals of improving air quality, protecting public health and fostering a more sustainable urban environment. To that end, we have been actively exploring opportunities to support improved air quality through partnerships and external funding. Recently, we collaborated on 2 funding applications submitted to the Victorian Government. The first, led by the University of Melbourne and involving the original Idle Off campaign researchers, focused specifically on anti-idling initiatives. We were advised only this week that the application was unsuccessful. In light of this, we will now consider what such a project looks like without external funding support. The second application, led by RMIT, proposes the establishment of a decentralised air quality monitoring network. We're currently awaiting the outcome of this application. We've also received a request from the Maribyrnong Truck Action Group and will be arranging a meeting to explore opportunities for collaboration, particularly around a locally informed community education program. Council remains committed to supporting initiatives that promote environmental sustainability and public health, and we look forward to continuing this important conversation with the community.
Thanks, Mike. And as the councillor who moved the motion about declaring the health emergency, I can assure Glenn that it's definitely high on our priority list. So the next set of questions are from Ming Kang Chen. First one is, would council or councillors consider supporting a community campaign to increase awareness of the Activity Centres program and issues with residents? As a West Footscray local, only a minority of residents are aware of the significant changes planned, and it has taken residents themselves to research and inform others about what is happening. Other councils and councillors, e.g. Boroondara, Bayside, Merribeck, etc., have made critical public statements about the program. It is clear from the officer's report that there are significant issues in the program, but this was only available after the final public consultation concluded. So I'd ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Council officers agree that there has been a lack of community consultation in the rollout of the proposed changes by the state government. The draft submission recommends additional engagement with all information provided to encourage participation and transparency in the process.
Thanks. And would any councillors like to comment or respond to that question? Councillor Pereira.
I'm just happy to say that I'd be happy to meet with anybody who wants to have a conversation about the activity centres. So just send me an email.
Councillor Yangi.
Just that I'd be happy to meet with anybody to talk about the activity centres.
Yeah. Councillor Yengi.
Yes, also really happy to meet with anyone that would like to have a chat about the activity centres, but I do want to add that there were a couple of consultation sessions a few months ago, some of which council shared across our various platforms, and I think some councillors also shared with the community as well. I, for one, found out about one of the sessions rather last minute as too. So I think the earlier sessions, like, we weren't informed ahead of time for some of them, and I remember going to one of the sessions, but again we were informed last minute. So I suppose when we do have the opportunity and the notification provided to us early enough, it is definitely something that you know, we're conscious of and will always share with the community, and particularly through our various platforms across council.
Any other councillors? Or I can move on to the next question. The second question is, will council or councillors consider aligning with other councils to present a unified stance or campaign against the rushed and unclear planning process for the activity centres program that has repeatedly ignored council and community concerns and feedback? And I'll ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, council officers have been in discussions with other metropolitan councils affected by the changes, with several common concerns identified. The Municipal Association of Victoria, the MAV, the legislated peak body for local governments in Victoria, has also suggested a number of recommendations to the state government. The MAV is the appropriate body to advocate a unified position on behalf of local government, and council officers welcome their continued role in doing so.
Thank you. And the third question, if the Activity Centres program continues to ignore and override council and community feedback, what measures will council or councillors be willing to consider to place more pressure on the state government to respond? And I'll ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, at this point in time, council will continue to engage with the DTP and advocate council's position as strongly as possible. No other measures outside of active advocacy in line with council's submission are proposed at this time.
Thank you. And I'll just add also, councillors have, as a group, have had a couple of briefing sessions with the department as well, and we've prior to the submission that was prepared, we gave them a very long list of suggested changes that we recommended, and most of them are in line with at least what I've heard from community members, and in particular the issue of consultation and adequate consultation and time for community to be engaged in what is a very, very you know, large and complex planning matter. So we'll move on to submission 4, and we have Jamie Hoang, who asks, hello, as a new homeowner, I'm excited to hear about the development of more buildings on Barclay Street, as this will improve young people's chances of having a house. I am, however, concerned about the proposed height being 12 stories. I'm a resident of Souter Crescent, and in the event that the buildings are 12 stories, my windows will not get any light during winter. By comparison, the Seddon Village is limited to 6 stories to address this very issue. Please explain how overshadowing will be addressed. I do not intend to rely on the goodwill of corporations to ensure I have light. And I'll ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond. Oh yeah, thank you. Councillor's going to have someone to cook, to extend, and someone to second. Thanks, Councillor Yengi. Everybody like to vote on that? Everyone happy? Great, thank you. Thanks for the nudge. So I'd like to ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond to that question.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Look, it's not clear how site-specific amenity issues will be addressed at the moment, and to that end, Council's submission includes recommendations for more detail on the proposed planning controls to better understand and provide feedback on how issues like this will be managed. But I would say to the person who's raised this question, we're happy to sit down with them as well and provide as much advice as we've got in front of us at the moment to help you understand the impact.
Great, that's excellent. Thank you for that offer. Submission 5 is from Steve Curry, who asks, Council's own submission highlights major flaws in the state's Activity Centre program, limited consultation, poor integration of infrastructure and unclear new height controls. Once this report is sent, what concrete steps will Council take to keep residents informed and involved in the next stage before any rezoning decisions are made? I'll ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Council will use its existing communications channels to provide updates on the program, but we strongly recommend that any interested community members follow updates through Engage Victoria, the state government's website, and the Department of Transport and Planning to receive direct updates on the Activity Centre program and possible future opportunities for engagement.
Thank you. And second question is, if the state goes ahead with the rezoning despite this submission and community opposition, what guarantees can Council give residents that it will keep advocating for us to ensure overshadowing infrastructure, open space and traffic issues are properly addressed and that we will still have a genuine say in what happens next? Ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, Council will continue to advocate for consideration of the issues listed in this question, which is in line with its submission, and respond to any additional material provided by the state government. Part of this advocacy includes a position that continued and more meaningful community engagement is necessary to ensure that our residents can have a genuine say in what happens next.
Thank you. And the third question is, many residents in and around West Footscray are deeply distressed by the proposed 10 to 12-storey developments along Barclay Street and near Banbury Village. Families are already considering selling or relocating due to the ongoing uncertainty. Will Council formally acknowledge and publicly address the social, emotional and community impacts this process is having? And will Council commit to holding a dedicated community meeting to allow residents to voice their concerns directly rather than limiting input to this development delegated meeting or Council meetings? And I'll ask the Director of Planning and Environment to respond.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, look, we acknowledge that planning matters, particularly those involving significant change, can have social and emotional impacts on communities. We understand that the proposed changes in the Activity Centre program have generated strong feelings and uncertainty for some residents. While Council is committed to ensuring community voices are heard, at this stage we do not intend to hold a separate dedicated community meeting regarding the program. We encourage all interested residents to make submissions and attend any future engagement meetings or workshops to ensure their concerns will be considered.
Thank you. And just to add to that as well, particularly for the West Footscray and Seddon areas, the two neighbourhood plans that Council prepared after long periods of consultation with the community form part of the, I guess, the recommendations and the fact-finding and the research that Council has proposed through the submission and in conversations with the department. So, you know, we're taking everything that we've already heard from the community and, you know, bringing it along as part of our submission. So I know that's not the answer to the question, but I do hope that it gives residents some comfort that Council really is doing everything that we can within the limited scope of the engagement that the state government has set out for both us and the community to make our voices heard. So, submission 6, Tony Pillman asks, with the new Footscray Hospital already open for a significant number of workers, there is already pressure on surrounding streets for parking. What can Council do to force the opening of the hospital car park that was completed more than 12 months ago? And I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure Services to respond.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So in regards to the new Footscray Hospital, Council has been advised that construction activities are still actively ongoing, including testing and commissioning. The car parking area is currently being utilised for multiple operational purposes, including storing material, large delivery requiring heavy machinery operation, and a designated workers' kitchen facility. And therefore the hospital car park has not been open for use as yet.
Thank you. And the second question, regarding parking generally, why hasn't Council upgraded parking restrictions around the new hospital to mirror what is already in place for the existing hospital? And again, I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure Services to respond.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So there has been some work done in this space, and the majority of the on-street car parking restrictions are immediately adjacent to the existing Footscray Hospital, either free 2-hour parking and metered parking for 2 hours. The on-street car parking restrictions on Federal Street, Tiernan Street and Geelong Road Service Road are all-day metered parking, and on other nearby streets such as the Crescent and Droop Street are a mix of 1-hour parking and 2-hour parking. The existing on-street parking restrictions adjacent to the new Footscray Hospital are fairly similar to those adjacent to the existing hospital. Notwithstanding this, further adjustments to on-street parking restrictions within the new hospital precinct are currently under consideration.
Thank you. And that was our last question. So public question time is now closed at 6:52 p.m. So we'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes. Agenda item 5.1, confirmation of minutes 24 of September 2025. And I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Lamb.
That office's recommendations that the City of Development Delegating Committee confirm the minute of the City of Development Delegating Committee meeting held on the 24th of September 2025.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith.
Formally seconded.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. Councillors, please cast your votes.
Computer?
Okay, so let's... there they are. Thank you, and the motion is carried. So we'll now move on to the officer reports. And the first report is agenda item 6.1, planning application TP 1132025 1-18 Birdwood Street, Maribyrnong. And CEO, are there any requests to address the committee in relation to this item tonight?
Yes, Chair, we do have 9 people who have asked to address the committee.
Okay, thank you. So firstly, I'll invite Nathan Blackwell to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. Nathan, are you with us tonight? Sorry? He's not here, okay. If he comes up late, end of the list. Second, I'd like to invite Chris Finch to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. Yeah, up to the podium, and if you just push the right-hand button there, Chris, it'll... Oh, there you are, you're on. Oh, yep, so we can all hear you. Thanks.
I live at 16 Birdwood Street. It's been made very clear to us that the only grounds on which we can object to this development are those of heritage. Over the past couple of months, through the process of informing us and very few others about the application, and at the online forum, we've heard a lot about the standards and the regulations and what they allow. We've had very little or no discussion about heritage and what it means. So while the heritage overlay refers to the architecture, the facade, the fence, the garden setback and so on, I'd suggest that most of the people who are objecting to this are doing so on the basis that the heritage nature of our neighbourhood includes its social values, the way it allows us to live because of the way it is built and occupied. These homes were built for family occupancy almost 100 years ago. They offered returned soldiers space and peace to recover from the tribulation of war and hopefully raise a growing and healthy family. Most houses in the street are still single-family residences or small households, and that's part of what the heritage means to us. We're not just talking about that one building either, we're talking about a heritage precinct. This is an area historically significant to Maribyrnong, the War Service Homes Heritage Area. The Australian Heritage Commission, which defines these areas of significance, doesn't just use aesthetic criteria, it also does consider social values. I've lived at 16 Birdwood Street since before the heritage overlay came into force in 1995. Every change we've made to our house has complied with the overlay. And I know there are other objectors who have likewise complied with every detail required to ensure the heritage value of the precinct is honoured. It has been a very slow burn, but over those 30 years, the heritage overlay has worked. Houses have gradually been bought by people who love them and have put time, energy and money into honouring the heritage and turning them into beautiful family homes that provide them with space and peace as intended. Take a walk along Monash, Prince or Birdwood Street to see what I mean. The heritage overlay has ensured our pocket of interwar homes has become a significant precinct and is the city's best representation of the period. Yes, there are still a number of houses now subject to the heritage overlay that have not been touched or changed since it came into force. But that is not a reason, as was put forward by the applicant during the forum, for allowing this change. I urge the committee to consider the purposes for which the heritage overlay was implemented, most specifically to ensure that development does not adversely affect the significance of heritage places. Please reject this application on the basis that this or any similar multi-occupant residence will negatively impact on the heritage value of the precinct. Allow the heritage overlay to continue to be properly applied so the value and character of the precinct and Birdwood Street continue to grow.
Thank you. So I now invite Andrew Philippone to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. You're right? Yep.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I've lived in Birdwood Street since 2005 and proud to say I'm an owner of a heritage-listed war service home. We recently completed a major renovation and adhere to all the heritage overlay regulations that were required. This area in particular, Birdwood Street, Prince Street and Monash Street, really have turned a corner in the last 5 to 10 years in particular. We have a family-friendly block. Our children go to fantastic schools like Footscray North Primary, St Margaret's and Maribyrnong College. I ask you the question, have you actually been for a walk down Monash, Prince or Birdwood Street lately? Have you seen the transformation of these lovely, very old Californian bungalow homes? These homes have cultural significance not just for our suburb, but our entire community. I am a custodian of my home. I fully respect the great job the council has done in recognising these homes as heritage. We are now bringing up our young families in these streets. Children play and ride their bikes up and down every day. All we ask is for a safe place for them to do so. Let's not beat around the bush. With so many young families and children, no one wants a rooming house next door to them. No one wants a share house in their street. It's a given that it will create the likelihood of strangers and high turnover of people. I'm sure you wouldn't want kids exposed to that.
Excuse me, Andrew. You'll have to wrap it up. Your 3 minutes is...
I haven't spoken for 3 minutes yet.
Sorry?
I haven't spoken for 3 minutes yet, no.
It's not 3
You're
minutes.
lucky if it's been 2. I've timed this 3 times today. I understand people need somewhere to live, but this is a slap in the face for us as residents. We have invested heavily with blood, sweat and tears transforming these homes and neighbourhoods alike. We did this knowing that townhouses and subdivision was not possible on our side of the street. We never expected something like this, a rooming house, to be endorsed. Number 18 will never be a home. It will set a precedent for other landlords to do the same and cash in on this model. This will ruin what has slowly become and continuing to become a zone with opportunities and tastefully renovated homes to live and raise a family safely. We are not stupid or ignorant to the fact that many landlords in the area are already using their places to accommodate multiple rooms and people. I can only assume these are done illegally, as these places are definitely not up to today's stringent standards as a rental, let alone a rooming house. Now, although this is another issue, I'm just about done, altogether, it is relevant because our exposure to a rooming house is already evident.
Okay, I think
this is why you have
is up
close
now.
to 80 signatures
Andrew,
with a resounding no and
3
objection
minutes
to this
is up.
plan.
Thank you. 3 minutes is up. I'd like to invite Iden Tudor to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and fellow councillors, and thanks for the opportunity of being able to come and just speak from my experiences of living in Birdwood Street. I've been a resident of Birdwood Street for over 40 years. Our 2 children grew up in the street. My wife and I were initially locals and have moved into Birdwood Street back in '84. Birdwood Street and the homes at Birdwood Street hold particular significance to myself and my wife. Our parents were returned service people from World War II. And much of what Birdwood Street represents to us is of real significance because of that experience that our parents went through in World War II. When the heritage overlay came into place, my wife and I were very supportive because we wanted to see the nature and character of the homes and what they represent, not just the character of the building, but the period and history of the time and the legacy that they were carrying forward. Part of the reason why we maintained our presence in Birdwood Street was the very fact of that connection that we've felt to the homes and the times, and indeed the legacy that our parents have left with us. I can't support the proposed development of number 18. Our concern is that we want to see the heritage nature of the street of Birdwood continue and that legacy progress and move forward. We want something in the street to remind us of that period of time. Our concern is that if the proposal was to be successful, that it begins the erosion of what that heritage overlay put in place, and that was the preservation of those period homes and what they represent. The concern is that if the proposal is successful, it begins a roll-on of potential other changes and the lack of preservation of those homes and what they represent, to not only to myself, my wife and our children, but to the other residents that many of who have bought into the local neighbourhood for that very reason. So I would implore Council, which I'm sure you have already and will continue to do, to look at the proposal very carefully in light of what the residents of the street are now putting before you. That the street, the homes, the character, the community means something to us, and we want to see that preserved. We want to see the homes preserved for what they represent, and we want to see that continue on for other generations to experience.
Thanks, Ivan.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to invite Katerina Damasi to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Hello, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. My name is Catherine Damasi and I live on 32 Birdwood Street. As you're aware, on late Friday afternoon, the report was given by Council that 18 Birdwood Street was going to go ahead, and they were in favour of it. So I took it upon myself to get a petition going. And with 3 kids in tow, 2 at the back, 1 on a capsule at the front, I went door knocking. And to my surprise, less than a dozen of people, of the residents on Monash Street, Prince Street, Birdwood Street, were aware of what was going on 18 Birdwood Street and what was proposed. Less than a dozen. And over 90% of the residents on Monash Street, Birdwood Street and Prince Street, and I repeat those streets because those are the streets that have the heritage overlay on them and those houses, right? They signed the petition almost instantly. They do not want this development to go ahead. Now, this was just done, my petition was just done in 1 day. It was on the Saturday. And with myself, I also took a Vietnamese translator because I'm aware there are other Vietnamese people that don't speak English. So in 1 day, I was able to get 90% of people to sign this petition. Now, for those who aren't here today, I actually want to, in their favour, say their names and give you their addresses of Sung Min Cho, 30 Birdwood Street, decline, or object. Laura Choi, 30 Birdwood Street, object. Bok Nok Pham, 25 Birdwood Street, object. Murray Brown, 16 Birdwood Street, object. Christine Finch, 16 Birdwood Street, object. David Kalitzis, 20 Birdwood Street, object. Sophie Andrew Jack Filipponi, 28 Birdwood Street, object. I've got a few lists to keep going. Lan Lee, 10 Birdwood Street.
You do only have 3 minutes, so if you've got other things to say, we do know that the petition has come into Council, so we do have all of those people's names.
You do have names? Yeah. Okay. Well, then, in respect to you and to the time, I guess, I urge you guys to actually have a read through and see what we're actually saying and what we're objecting to, and I hope you do listen to us as your residents.
Thank you. So next I invite Angelo Damasi to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Greetings and good evening, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to address the councillors, the council's representatives, and give me an opportunity to speak on behalf of my concerned fellow residents of the area. I note that I've emailed personally Mayor and Councillor Tawari, Councillor Semra and Councillor Yengi with the detailed pieces of information required for all of you to be fully informed on the decision that you're being asked to move forward today. I'll keep my commentary short, but I want to make three critical, categoric, objective arguments to help move you in the right direction here. The first of which is that we simply disagree on an objective basis with the Heritage Advisor's documentation that's been provided to you that the 3 or more changes being made to the front facade of a heritage-listed property are insignificant. I ask you, how can the demolition of a front door that's been standing and hanging for nearly 100 years be considered insignificant? I ask you, how can the demolition of the veranda and the changing of associated heights be considered insignificant when they've been sitting there for nearly 100 years? And I ask you, how can the insertion of a new accessibility and mobility ramp spanning the entirety of the front yard with a handrail as high as my hip be considered insignificant? Furthermore, I ask you, how can this be considered contributory to and enhancing of a heritage overlay? This beggars belief. Argument one. Argument two, and I raise this not so much to air my grievances, because that's not the sort of person that I am, but I raise this because I've provided the 3 councillors in question my sworn affidavit on behalf of my wife and I, where I've asked for very simple changes to be made during my restoration and renovation of our house at 32 Birdwood Street, which have all been denied and declined. I accept that. I complied, and I spent a lot of money to do exactly what this council is prepared, well, was prepared up until today to do, which is to maintain the heritage overlay of Birdwood Street. However, the inequitable treatment of the heritage overlay for the residents in these streets is deplorable and must be listened to. You cannot have one rule for one human being and one property owner and another rule for another human being and another property owner. And for the councillors who haven't received my email, I urge you to receive it, because I put to you that without this information, you are not fully informed to make the decision that's been put in front of you today. My third and final argument relates to the engagement of the community, which I suggest, and you've just heard from Catherine Damasi, is inadequate. And if people want to disagree, then I'd like to understand how 70 of 78 petitioners did not know about this development. How can that possibly be? If you put to us that this is adequate engagement, how can so many people in our street and the surrounding streets simply be unaware of this proposal? So, in summary, our ask of you, on behalf of concerned residents sitting behind me here in the gallery—
Angelo, your 3 minutes is up, so—
I will close.
Yeah.
My ask of you is, please, read the materials. Consider yourself fully informed post-reading them. You must read them. You cannot be fully informed and be discharging your duties as councillors if you haven't read them.
Thank you.
If you still
Thanks, Angelo.
choose to
Angelo,
push this
your time's
forward,
up now.
then you
We've
must
given you a bit of leeway.
allow
Thank
for
you.
community engagement to occur.
Angelo,
it
your
has not
time is
occurred.
up. I now invite Nathan Nguyen to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes.
This is 3 minutes, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, for hearing myself and my family. I'm in support of the approval of the planning permit, and as far as I'm aware, the scope of it should be limited to clause 43.01 of the heritage overlay, which states that council can only grant the permit if the proposed works conserve and enhance heritage places of natural or cultural significance and do not adversely affect the significance of a heritage place. So impliedly, the test is, will the works harm or help the heritage significance of the place or precinct? Under clause 43.01, the test is whether the works conserve and enhance the heritage place. Our plans retain a contributory front, set new mass behind, use sympathetic materials, and keep the garden and low fence intact. Council's own heritage officers have confirmed that these attributes have been preserved, and on that basis, the heritage test is therefore satisfied, and approval with standard conditions is appropriate. And I'd like to address the the objections made by the objectors as well. So the first one, that it destroys the heritage streetscape. The front form, fence and garden presentation stay. New mass is behind and lower, materials match and the works are reversible. That is the heritage test, and as far as I'm aware, we've met it. In regards to noises, strangers or antisocial behaviour, planning tests amenity, not who lives there. We've set quiet hours, a complaints line and maintenance, and we're happy for this to be enforceable. Second last, precedent and floodgates that the objectors were discussing. The HO decisions in their nature are made case by case. So approving a reversible recessive addition does not authorise future multi-unit redevelopment. And finally, the fact that the notice process was unfair and there was no sign, council managers notice. If they want re-notice, we'll comply, but it's not a merits reason to refuse. Thank you.
Thank you. So next I invite Vivian Dang to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. No? And Chris Nguyen?
Yeah, I've been involved in, hi councillors, I've been involved in this planning process with the council planning department back and forth just to meet the heritage overlay requirements since it's impacted by the change of the ramp, addition to the ramp due to rooming house, and it's based on the DDA. We provided the ramp due to disability access. Apart from that, our works are kept quite minimal to the back of the property, and it's been, looked at with the planning heritage advisor at planning department. Yeah, look, and rooming houses exemption, we've met all the criteria that's laid out with the council and in consultation with the council. I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for that. So now I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Pereira. Oh, just if you can just turn your mic on.
That the City Development Delegated Committee, 1, issue a notice of decision to grant a permit to partially demolish and construct. Move what for? Demolish and construct an extension to the dwelling in a heritage overlay subject to conditions contained in attachment 1, and 2, note that the delegation of management city development to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of issuing this planning permit.
Thank you, councillor. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Any councillors? Thanks, Councillor Yengi. Would the mover like to speak? Oh, sorry. Are there any questions or points of clarification from councillors? Councillor Semra?
Would this be the right time to ask the question?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would I be able to put up a alternate motion to defer for further consultation? It's a question to the CEO.
Councillor, and I will also refer to governance on this. So through you, Chair, the motion that's on the table has been moved and would be considered. You can foreshadow that you, if that is not carried, that you have another motion that you would like to, an alternate motion that you would like to put forward.
Okay, any other questions or points of clarification, councillors?
Sorry, I did have a couple, but I guess I was going to speak and do the clarification together. There's like a bit of a preamble.
Or
So
maybe ask you, if
that?
you've got clarifications, you'll need to ask them now and then speak for or against the motion
If you
after.
could ask your questions now, Councillor Yingy, because you can only speak to the motion once.
Okay. All right then. With your permission, Chair, I I guess I had a couple of questions for clarification for the Director of Planning, just as a result of the petition that came in a little bit late.
Yeah, so if you just ask the question, then I'll call on someone to answer.
Great.
Yep.
I've got 4 questions. Do you want them all at once or just one by one?
One by one?
Sure. The first one is, can you confirm how many rooming houses we have across Maribyrnong and how these are typically managed? I assume that Council's planning approach prevents clustering and ensures that residents are supported to live safely and independently in our community.
Okay, so I'll just ask our Manager of Planning to answer that question.
Pardon me, through the chair. Consumer Affairs Victoria holds a public register of registered rooming houses. There are 46 registered rooming houses within this municipality. In terms of this second part of your question, given the wide-ranging permit exemptions within the Victorian planning provisions, there aren't the planning tools to prevent clustering of rooming houses. And that's actually an advocacy position that MAV have taken up in the past, which is that there should be planning reform to avoid clustering, but certainly the way the Victorian planning provisions are at the moment, there's not a planning tool in residential zones to avoid that.
But that is something we're advocating on through the MAV.
Okay, so let's go to question 2.
All right.
Yep.
Sorry. To that.
Yep,
all right, question 2. Can you touch on how Council actively monitors and enforces compliance when it comes to rooming houses?
Okay, I'll ask the Manager of Planning to answer that.
Thank you, through the chair. Council's role is limited largely to the Environmental Health Team under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. So there's a split, I guess, in the standards for rooming houses. The Residential Tenancies Act and Consumer Affairs Victoria handle the bulk of the minimum standards, and then the Council's Environmental Health Team administer the public and health wellbeing regulations. So there's a registration requirement, and then there are annual checks associated with that. That focuses on hygiene and sanitation and minimum standards around that sort of thing. The other minimum standards are enforced by Consumer Affairs Victoria.
Okay, you got another question, Councillor?
Yes, but I also had a follow-up one.
Next question.
Question 3. Can you touch on Council's approach to dealing with properties that fail to meet health and safety standards?
Okay.
Thank you, through the chair. Probably the same answer again. There are certain requirements that Environmental Health Team would enforce and certain ones that Consumer Affairs Victoria would enforce. And then when it comes to building safety standards, of course, there is a role for our building team under the Building Act and building regulations.
Right, thank you. And got one more.
4th question.
Yeah.
Can you touch on how Council ensures rooming houses meet strict amenity and safety conditions? I guess in this instance of safety, we're talking probably more building, but also potentially just broader sort of community safety as well.
Yep, so the Manager of City Development can answer that one. Yep, thank you.
Thanks, and through the chair, a very similar answer again. Certainly basic building safety, our building team would take care of that. When it comes to the amenity and safety standards in the Residential Tenancies Act, again, Consumer Affairs Victoria, in terms of wider social safety, there's nothing specific to regulations that govern rooming houses that don't otherwise govern society.
Thank you. So any other councillors have any questions or points of clarification?
I've got
Councillor
a clarification, Chair. Probably on the back of what Councillor Semra said, asking for a deferment. I'm not sure of his reasons, but my only reasoning would be...
I think, people can't hear you.
It's the mic's fault. I'll start again. I just wanted to ask a clarification as to what Councillor Semra said, asking for a deferment. I don't know his reasons, but my question or clarification that I wanted to ask is, I've just heard a number of residents raise concerns that they have not been part of a consultation, and these are people living in and around the subject site or on the street, on Birdwood Street. So if that's not a good reason for a deferment to be able to listen to their objections and concerns, I don't know what would be. So it is a clarification I'm asking, if you could maybe get someone to address that.
So I might just ask the Manager of City or Development or the Director of Planning and Environment just to outline what the consultation or the advertising/consultation process entail.
Could I clarify something first, Chair, please?
Sure.
Councillor Semra's question was in regard to an alternate motion. He didn't declare at that point what the alternate motion might be. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you.
But I will ask the Manager of City Development just to outline what the consultation and advertising process was for councillors.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Firstly, I'll probably separate those two things, the notice and then maybe the consultation and engagement following notice. The notice would be naturally limited in this situation because the only trigger is the heritage overlay. The test in the Planning Environment Act as to who receives notice is based on whether they will suffer material detriment as a result of the permission that's being sought. So whilst the use proposed may have some wider effects, that's not something that required a planning permit. So the notice was naturally limited to adjoining properties because they are those who'd experience the built form, which is the thing that...
Excuse me, people in the gallery, you need to remain calm, please, and quiet if you can. We'll just let the manager finish. We'll just let him finish first.
We are on a live stream.
We're listening, but this is also not a Q&A session, if I can just say that. So let's just let the manager finish what he's got to say.
So there is discretion for officers. They have to make a call on who will suffer material detriment as a result of the proposal. That was the call that was made, and it was narrow because it's a heritage overlay trigger, which some may disagree with. That is the test in the Planning Environment Act. And then what follows with the engagement process is getting objectors together with the permit applicant and having a session to discuss the issues around the proposal.
Thank you. Is that Councillor Chouari? So you've got that? Everybody's understood what the process was. Are there any councillors have any other points of clarification or questions about the motion that's before us, I guess, firstly? So, no? Okay. So would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just briefly. Oh, yeah, I know. Usually it's really sensitive. We've got this before us, but also we've obviously got the activity centres before us as well. We've got significant changes happening across our municipality, and a lot of them are driven by the housing crisis. And I know...
If I could just ask people in the gallery, please, if you can just remain quiet while the councillor speaks. Thanks.
I know it's incredibly frustrating, and both processes demonstrate to us the limitations of the legislation that we currently have around dealing with the housing crisis, but then also dealing with the culture and community that we want to create in our municipalities. Unfortunately, for this planning process, voting for or against this one site isn't going to address the housing crisis, and we need a lot more work to be done so that communities aren't faced with these binary choices. I know that there were some people in the planning forum which I attended had trouble getting through because of the heritage, and heritage is subjective, but also we want to have as much fairness and consistency as possible as well. So if there are any concerns around that for your own properties, please contact the staff and have a discussion. The person doing the development is obviously here. I know you spoke at the planning forum. My hope is that you will be very open and transparent and communicative with the residents and manage a very high quality rooming house. And I hope that the people who live in that dwelling in the future will become a great addition to your community.
Thanks, Councillor. No, sorry, it's not a... The person speaking, I can't see you, I'm sorry, but it's not a Q&A session, as I said earlier. It's a council meeting for councillors to... We have heard from the objectors and the applicant, so we'll just move on to the seconder of the motion, would you like to speak to the motion? Yeah. Thanks, Councillor
Sorry, I was
Yengi.
looking at Sam. I guess I wanted to start by saying thank you to everybody that came out here today. So all the residents that live on Birdwood Street and surrounding streets, everybody that put forward a submission to us about their concerns. I have actually been down Birdwood Street, and because I used to live on Mitchell Street, so I am familiar with the area and familiar with the housing structures, and have walked around, and it is a really beautiful street, and the surrounding streets are really beautiful as well. I will say though, I mean, I guess it's no secret that our area is experiencing rapid urban change and rising housing costs and growing demand for affordable housing. As the officer mentioned earlier, we've got 45 rooming houses around Maribyrnong at the moment. And I think broadly speaking, in terms of housing, it's recognised that rooming houses play a critical role, not just in Maribyrnong, but across the board, but in particular, obviously in this case, in Maribyrnong's housing ecosystem, meeting the needs of residents, students and new arrivals. I, for one, know, for example, we've got the new hospital that's opening up very soon. We've got, VU's got a couple of centres, and I know that there's an expected number of students that are expected to migrate to our area. Expected increases in healthcare workers that are expected to move to our area to come and find accommodation locally in order to work in this space, but also new new people migrating from overseas that will also be coming to our area looking for places to live, and I guess the research shows us in some particular areas in particular, when these rooming houses are managed really well and when new residents are supported to integrate into the community, they can actually contribute significantly to the fabric of that community rather than detracting from it. I know that tonight we're being asked to consider whether this application before us is acceptable in relation to the purpose and objectives of the heritage overlay. And I am really conscious that, a lot of you have raised concerns, particularly around safety, quality of accommodation, neighbourhood amenity and issues such as noise, waste management, parking, and of course, concentration of social issues. I suppose what I would hope for is that if this does progress, I think this is a really great opportunity for us to welcome new people into our area and to be able to, welcome them into your community. You talked about the social heritage, and the lovely environment you have there. I think I don't see why it wouldn't be a great opportunity to welcome people and show them what you have to offer within your community and share that with people, which is something that, broadly as a community, I mean, we want to promote, social inclusion. We want to welcome new people into our municipality and we want to make them feel welcome. And these are opportunities to do that.
Thank you, people in the gallery. Thank you, people in the gallery. If you can let the councillor finish, please. If you can let the councillor finish, please. Excuse me. If you can you please let the councillor finish?
There's a share house where I live. Whilst I do understand some of your concerns, but I've also, having experienced at the other end, there are share houses around where I live, and I have to say, sorry.
No, okay, sorry.
Sorry, can I just...
Excuse me, people in the gallery, we will actually have to end the meeting. We'll have a pause in the meeting if you can't remain quiet.
Sure.
Just a moment, Councillor Yengi.
So we talked about
Councillor Yengi, sorry, just a moment. I just asked in the gallery again, members of the gallery, this is not a time for, it's not the Coliseum. This is a time for, councillors have heard from the gallery. For those people who presented, it's now time for councillors to speak. So if you can please remain quiet. If you're unable to do that, I will ask you to leave. So please, let's hear from the councillors that need to speak at the moment.
Thank you.
Councillor Yengi.
You talked about the social, I guess, social heritage overlay. And then there was also the actual heritage overlay, which is what this planning permit is all about. Having walked around the street and read the officer reports, personally, my understanding is that it does meet that specific requirement for the permit. In terms of the social, heritage that you've spoken about the community that you've created, I have to agree and say that you've got a really wonderful community over there. But isn't that also an opportunity really for us to share that with, other people and welcome them into our community?
Councillor,
I guess that's...
I think your 3 minutes is definitely up, so thank you for that. So would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Meredith?
Yep. I will just agree with Councillor Yengi on it is an opportunity to welcome new people into your streets. I do understand about, that you may have concerns. However, I think there is an opportunity there to build a community if you've already got a really good, stable community. And I do think that everybody has a right to having a home as well. And I do think that
thank you.
Everyone has
I'll
a right to
reiterate.
have a home.
Just a minute, Councillor Meredith. I'm just going to reiterate, please, people in the gallery, please remain silent. This is the councillor's time to speak. Thanks, Councillor Meredith.
And I would encourage the developer to definitely, manage the property well and respect the heritage of the facade and the grounds, things like that. So, that's...
Thanks, Councillor. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tawari?
Yeah, I just want to begin by first outright saying that I personally don't have any issue with rooming houses as a form of accommodation. I think, as some of the other councillors said, they've played a legitimate role in providing housing options for people in need, and they're part of a diverse and inclusive housing landscape. However, I do want to acknowledge what I've heard tonight is that 78 residents who've signed a petition on Saturday, 3 nights ago, and I've just heard regarding the application. And I think their participation reflects genuine community interest in the future of the neighbourhood. What also concerns me is that what I've heard tonight is that around 70 of those residents were unaware of this application altogether, and more than a dozen households that did not know, they were never notified and would have liked to contribute to the process. To me, that tells me that there's a clear gap in consultation and communication. Regardless of where anyone stands on this proposal, I think the residents deserve to be informed and heard before a decision is made. So regardless of the final outcome, whether the decision goes one way or the other, the process must be transparent and inclusive. I think that's what builds trust in council's decisions and ensures that our community feels respected and represented. I think, for me, it's not about opposing housing, it's about upholding the transparency, fairness and the due process. I think values that every council and councillor should strive to uphold. So that would be my only addition to what I'd like to say on this application.
Thanks, Councillor. Just before we move on, would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Semra?
Thank you. I think it's important to carefully acknowledge what objectives are put forward. The overwhelming concern that has come through is around heritage. I remember door knocking down Birdwood Street, and it is deeply valued by the community there. Now, of course, we cannot ignore the housing crisis. We all know the pressing need for more housing, and I would say I'm a big supporter for more affordable housing. And it is something council must play their part in addressing. But the community's message here has been clear. Many feel they were not properly made aware of this application due to the limited consultation. The lack of engagement has amplified the sense of unease and has left residents feeling that their voices have not been fully heard. When there is such a level of uncertainty, particularly on an issue as sensitive as heritage, it signals the need for further consultation and more deliberation. Residents are asking for clarity and assurance that the heritage value of Birdwood Street will not be compromised, while also wanting to understand how new housing can be delivered without eroding what makes their neighbourhood special. For those reasons, I believe it would be premature to proceed with this, the concerns of objectors remain, I believe, unresolved, and those concerns should carry weight in our decision-making, especially if there is a sense that consultation was limited.
Thanks, Councillor. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Nope. Okay, just...
Can I just clarify something? Sorry.
You another question? Sure. Have you got... Okay, just
No,
ask
that's
the question.
okay. I just wanted to... Yes, just
Clarification.
wanted to clarify. Councillor Semra's question earlier was about deferring for further consultation, or
No. It was a...
or
Can I just mention?
What was the request?
If you, Councillor, if you wish to put forward and notify that there will be an alternate motion if this motion is lost in regard to deferral, you can do that. That would be the way to do it. So the council has a motion on the table, they need to consider that. If that motion is not carried, then if Councillor Semra identifies that he has an alternate motion, the alternate motion could be considered. And I'm just looking at our governance team. If you'd like to add to that at all.
CEO, yes, that's correct. Although the alternative is that if the mover and the seconder, under governance rules, did agree, they could suspend the current motion and consider an alternative first if they agreed to do so. They'd have to withdraw it. My apologies. Yes.
Before we move on, I'd like to speak to the motion as well, but I do have a question just to clarify with either the Director of Planning and Environment or the Manager of City Development, just around has Council implemented all of the requirements for notification and for talking to the community about this process? I think the answer is yes, but I just would probably like that re-clarified again, that we have actually done what we're legally and probably a bit more obligated to do.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and I think you've hit on it there. There's a notification requirements under the Planning and Environment Act, and then there's what we do as an organisation, and typically councils do on top of that when there's a lot of objections to a planning application. So we've done what's required of us in the Planning and Environment Act in terms of notice, noting that that is a discretionary decision that has to be made on every application as to who will suffer material detriment. And then on top of that, there's been an engagement over and above that with the objectors. Okay,
thank you. And I probably just want to echo, thank you everybody for coming in, because this is part of the process, is community coming in to council to speak directly to councillors about your concerns. And, you know, I noted a few things down, and echoing, I think, what Councillor Yengi and probably Councillor Pereira said around, you know, you've obviously got you've got a great, strong community there, and I probably, if this motion passes, would absolutely encourage you to extend that to the people who will come and live in this house, because it will be their home. You know, we have 46 other similar houses and homes spread across the municipality. Personally, I know people who live in rooming houses, and they are people who would be, you know, love to probably enjoy the friendly neighbourhood that you have. We are in a housing crisis, and this is, for some people, a room in a rooming house is the only place that they are able to live. And if they're not living there, they're living on the street. And anyone who's been into Footscray CBD recently will have seen people living on the street. And I know that this is the way council has to approve or otherwise this application. We don't take those things into consideration, because that's not how the planning scheme works. It's pretty black and white. We can only consider this on the basis of heritage, and our officers have assessed it, and they've recommended to council that it meets all the heritage requirements. But I guess I would just, and as the manager said, you know, most councils actually, I don't know of any other council that does the type of consultation that I'm assuming many of you came to the online forums. Most councils don't do that, but we do that because we actually want to have conversations. We want our developers to be together, to come together in a forum with the people who, surround a development that will be affected. So I probably, if it does, if councillors do support the motion tonight, I really just do encourage you to reach out to those neighbours, to extend that hand of friendship. The legacy that I think it was Ivan who spoke about, the soldier settlers, and Chris. People who come to Maribyrnong from all walks of life, all parts of the world, and they come because we have been a very welcoming community. And I really encourage you, if it is passed tonight, to extend, just to, I guess, remember that when you go home and extend the hand of friendship to your new neighbours. So, but we need to move on because I've also had my 3 minutes and more, I think. We don't take points of order from the floor. I'm sorry. We don't take points of order from the floor. So, firstly, we're going to
Chair.
the mover. Sorry.
Yep. Would I be able to ask if the mover and seconder would consider referring? If not, I would like to foreshadow that I will raise the alternate motion if this fails.
Can I just ask if we can do that at this point? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to move to the mover for a right, exercise any right of reply now that we've heard from councillors. And if you can lean in, councillor, so everyone can hear you.
I feel like we've gone above and beyond with the consultation to date, and there has been opportunity for people to have their say, and I guess my fear is that it will delay the process. Now I have to ask questions as to whether we will have exceeded our planning requirement anyway, and then...
So if we can just go to the manager city development, if there's a deferral, what's the impact in the planning process impact and sort of going to VCAT and that, etc.?
Thank you, Chair. The impact is that the permit applicant may choose to ask for review of the application by the tribunal. So we're already in excess of the 60-day period that would trigger that right. So they have that right at any time. If we defer a decision, they could request that the tribunal review our failure to grant a permit within the prescribed time. So
can you just say that in sort of less planning terms, if that's okay, so everyone can understand it?
Pardon me. Thank you, Chair. The permit applicant at any time could take this to VCAT because we've taken so long to make a decision. That's not abnormal. The timescale to make a decision is quite short, 60 days, and when there are a lot of objections, it's typical that the process will take longer than 60 days. So it's typical that that right arises and at any time they can choose to use it. What you find in these situations is typically if you go through a council meeting cycle, a permit applicant will await the outcome of that. If you defer that decision, it makes it more likely that they'll choose to go to VCAT.
Thank you. Councillor, anything else you wanted to add? Or can we move to the vote?
Yeah, I think we moved to the vote.
Councillor, sorry, anything else you wanted to add? No? Okay.
No, so I'm asking some clarification regarding about the application now. How many days now so far?
Over 60, by the sounds of it. So council has 60 days to approve an application, and it sounds like because we've had a lot of engagement with the community, so we've gone over time.
Yep. Okay.
So, okay, thank you, councillor. All right, I am actually just going to put this motion to the vote now. So, councillors, can you please cast your votes? So we need someone else to vote. Okay, and the motion is carried. Thank you. So everybody, that means what's been proposed has gone through. Okay. So no. So Councillor Semra can't bring an alternate motion now because the one that councillors have just voted for has been carried. The majority of councillors had voted for the officer recommendation. So the matter's closed now. I'm just making sure people understand that. I can see a few nods. I mean, we're not going to engage in a Q&A. Okay, so what I'm just going to ask you to do is I might ask the Manager of City Development, just for people who have questions, just to pop out to the foyer, and I'll ask Rory, Manager of City Development, and perhaps maybe the Director if you need to go, but Rory will be able to tell you what you can do from now. So if you want to do, but you'll need to do that out in the foyer, because we've finished the matter. But thank you everybody for coming, and thanks for your time and your questions and your input. Yeah, Race. We'll just wait a moment while everybody leaves the chamber.
Lucas, what's wrong? What's happened? What's wrong? Yes, this is live.
Yes.
Yes.
So we will move on to the next item now. That those. Okay. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 6.2. I'll just keep. Well, yep. Council submission to the state government consultation on activity centre program. And CEO, are there any requests to address the committee in relation to this item?
I don't believe there are no requests to address the committee. I think, Phil, do we need to leave that door open? I think that's a requirement. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But there are no, I'm sorry to add that, there are no requests to address the committee.
Thank you, CEO. So I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Yengi.
That the City Development Delegated Committee endorse the submission attachment 1 to the State Government's consultation on the Activity Centre program, Middle Footscray to Tottenham Train and Tram Zone activity centres, request that the Mayor write to the Minister for Planning, providing a copy of Council submission, and authorise the Manager, City Development, to provide a copy of Council submission to the Department of Transport and Planning, and liaise with Department officers to advocate for Council's position in this submission.
Thank you, councillor. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Lamb. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification on this one? Councillor Tiwari?
Yeah, I've got one. I'm using my phone only because I was looking at the plans on that.
Okay, you're okay.
In our submission, there's a figure 11. I don't know if everyone can get to that, but it says an aerial perspective of Tottenham looking southwest from the corner of Victoria and Austin Street. I think that's wrong. That's not. There's no Austin and Victoria Street looking towards Tottenham.
Do you know what page that's on?
Oh, sorry, I took a screenshot. So, which page?
74. Okay, so you've got a question on page 74, figure 11. It says, and I'll just read it out, it says an aerial perspective of Tottenham looking southwest from the corner of Victoria and Austin Streets. So I might just ask the Director of Planning and Environment to just share some insights with us on that image.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I'll note that, Mr. Mayor, and we can make that amendment. It's just a minor amendment to the broad submission.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just reading through it. I didn't raise it before, but I saw it. There is no a view of Tottenham from looking from those two streets.
It would be a little tricky, wouldn't it? That's a good pickup. Thanks, Mayor. Okay. Did any other councillors have questions or points of clarification? No? Okay. So would the mover like to speak to the motion? Councillor Yengi.
I'll just say that we've had subsequent conversations with the department and have shared our feedback with regards to the proposed activity centres. Most of our feedback is actually quite aligned to some of what the community have shared with us as to what their concerns are regarding this. So I think just for our community, those that are wondering, just wanting to really highlight that we do share some of the concerns that have been raised, and this is captured in the report that's being provided forward to the department. And so we hope, as much as you do, that this feedback that's been provided will be taken into consideration, and we look forward to hopefully seeing some of these recommendations adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just briefly, hope that our council and the state government to work together to bring some good outcome for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Who's going to go first? Councillor Pereira.
I guess I'm going to go first.
And just pop that mic a little closer.
Yeah, I know. The big problem with the activity centres is that they require everyone to pretend that the problem with housing supply and access is town planning, and not so subtly that the problem lies with local government. Maribyrnong has numerous permits issued that are not being built, and many sites being land banked for some future opportunity when house prices go up or lending costs come down. Council and our community have been given woefully inadequate information, largely because that information is lacking in the department, and this initiative is a poor excuse for what should be a highly collaborative piece of work that spans all levels of government. Maribyrnong Council and our community recognise the importance of more well-designed and constructed dwellings with great urban density and amenity. Our community is generous and welcoming and wants to create a great city for old residents and new alike. What we need is a partnership approach that ensures appropriate local master planning and subsequent delivery of good housing. Finally, I want to highlight that even though this is called an activity centre, there's no business case that shows that they will in fact generate housing development activity. Secondly, that even though it's called an activity centre, there's no commitment to providing any other amenity crucial for an activity centre to meet community need or incentivise development. And if development happens despite the lack of infrastructure investment, then the existing infrastructure will quickly be overburdened by the new demand because it is insufficient. We need investment in civic amenity and infrastructure. We need pedestrian and cycling access throughout, including the strategic cycling corridors. Tottenham Station needs to be upgraded, and greater connectivity is required via active and public transport within the activity centres and beyond. There needs to be a commitment to public housing, social housing, including the abandoned work done in Braybrook, which includes deteriorating public housing stock and promised urban renewal. And additionally, demonstrate an appetite for collaborative approaches to enable innovative housing that generates diversity and access for key workers, right-sizes families, and fosters community resilience and climate adaptation.
Thanks, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lamb, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Pop your... Yep.
No.
Oh, she already spoke to it. Yeah. No.
Yep.
No, we're up to... No, that's right. We're up to councillor. Any other councillors who'd like to speak to the motion? Because we have the mover and the seconder. Any other councillors? Councillor Semra.
The activity centre, how it's rolling out raises concerns. Growth is being pushed into our centres without the same level of investment in transport, open space and community facilities. You know, you tend to feel like it's being done to community rather than with them. So I echo Councillor Pereira and fellow councillors' points around the need for stronger collaboration and a partnership approach. If this program is to succeed, it can't just be about density targets, it has to be about livability. That means resourcing councils properly, investing in infrastructure, and generally engaging with local communities. That's why those local master plans are super important. Without that, we risk undermining the very outcomes the program is meant to achieve. As we see with Footscray, there's many vacant sites, and what we don't want is something similar across our train stations.
Thank you, Councillor Semra. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Meredith.
Thank you very much. The council submission shows a clear commitment to good planning, consideration and community voice. It says that any increase in housing needs to come with proper infrastructure. It also must respect the heritage of an area, fit the local character and protect livability. The submission calls for open, honest consultation, partnership approach, on-time delivery of infrastructure as well, that's really important, new plans to match the neighbourhood plans that council has already done. I support more housing near transport and services because that makes sense. But the state's current activity centre plan, I don't think it's ready. It doesn't have enough evidence, proper planning or infrastructure to support real growth. And I do support growth though, but it needs to be done right. Building heights and density need to fit the local area. They should not block sunlight or overshadow existing homes and streets. And I think that the proposed heights in some of this are just a bit too high. So I encourage the department to go back and really have a look and think about the submission here from council. And I know that the Joseph Road precinct is proof of what happens when planning isn't backed by infrastructure. So I really do encourage the state to make sure that infrastructure is there as well, and amenity. Growth cannot exceed infrastructure upgrades. Another consideration I have is land banking, and land banking in Footscray is a huge problem itself, so I'd like to see that kind of tackled as well, so we don't end up with more vacant plots spread around the area. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No? I'll just say a couple of things. So I think it won't come as a surprise to anybody that Maribyrnong has been included in this state government's latest planning idea in response to population growth in Melbourne. Between 7 and sort of 10 k's from the city, it's an ideal place to live. We all love living here, but we've seen demographic change and growth in housing and population change over, probably the last 20 to 25 years. Maribyrnong's not opposed to housing development, but our community, both current and future, deserve good green developments in the right place, at the right height, and with community infrastructure that anticipates population change and is provided ahead of time or in line with population changes. Development must also be for everyone, not just those who can afford a home, and our community has welcomed public and more recently social and community housing projects for many years. Maribyrnong doesn't have enough open space, childcare centres, libraries, communities and art spaces, and any growth in housing and population must cater for that. Council does not have the capacity to support the projected population growth with those facilities. And we've undertaken consultation in our community in the past few years, particularly in West Footscray and Seddon, two of the activity centre areas, and this work has been largely ignored in this process. Officers have referred to these in the submission, and Council has also reiterated that we would like these considered with the Department of Transport and Planning. And the consultation processes that we have been through with our community have involved a lot of people, and it's clear that in this state government process, some people are still in those areas still aren't aware that there's a process going on, and I've spoken to people as recently as a few days ago about the process and they've only just heard about it. So even after 2 phases of so-called engagement, we still have people who will be impacted by this process and who would like to provide input into this proposal that will essentially shape the future, the urban fabric in our municipality for many decades to come. So we need We need the state government to do a little better for our communities. The submission prepared by the officers, I'm not going to go through it, it's a really comprehensive document. I encourage everyone to read it. I encourage the state government to read it and to take it on board and to have another look at what they've proposed for the three activity centres in Maribyrnong. It's a very comprehensive piece of work. It's the basis of conversations with councillors, conversations, of course, our council officers, looking at the work that we've already done with our community, those consultation processes I referred to earlier, and we really do need the state government to do a rethink, and there's some very specific rethinks, but there's also some general rethinks around council being assured that we will continue to receive 100% of developer contributions so that we can provide those much needed community infrastructure. So thank you to everybody who attended those, the couple of drop-in sessions, who took the time to read the documents, who engaged in all of the process, and we really hope that that this submission will have the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And thank you also to the many council officers who did put this together. So on that note, would the mover like to exercise the right of reply? No? Okay. Just checking. I'm just reading my notes. I didn't want to forget that. So I'll now put the motion to the vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. And the motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. So we'll move on to councillor question time. Can I just ask councillors if there are any councillors have any questions? No? Okay. And then we move on to items of urgent business. Are there any councillors or any items of urgent business? No. We'll move on to the end of the meeting. So thank you everybody who joined us online and the others who have left us from the gallery. I declare the meeting closed at 8:02 p.m. Thanks everyone.